Hi, everybody. Brian McNichols here from Touring Plans, which you probably know this because you might be watching this either on our Touring Plans YouTube page or on our Facebook page, which, if you are on our Facebook page right now, that is noon Eastern on Thursday, whatever today's date is. We are doing this live, and my co-host Angela will be joining me any minute now. In fact, she is probably messaging me to get it started because I was like a couple minutes late. And which is why I'm also just a touch out of breath, but it's okay. Now, this is not our regular weekly chat, where we talk boy, I am good at English today. This is not our regular chat where we talk about, sorry, Angela just popped on. I'm going to bring her on. As I explain that this is not our normal thing where we talk about theme parks, usually Disney World stuff. This is our special series. Hi, Angela.
Hello.
Ooh, you're loud today.
Oh, sorry. I'll turn it down.
No, it's okay.
Okay. No, I was so quiet before, so I'm like, I'm going to try the microphone, headphones, which I should have thought of this solution like months ago, and I can't believe this is such an easy solution. Why I feel silly for not thinking of it sooner. Anyway, yes.
Well,
sorry.
I was just explaining to people. Oh no, not at all. I was just explaining what we are doing here. Let me turn it back to the comments, and what we are doing here is talking about Harry Potter. The reason being because both of us will be in the Wizarding World of Harry Potter in Orlando at Universal Orlando Resort at some point this year. So we kind of wanted to rewatch the movies anyway. So we figured we'd talk about the movies, the books, and what you can find in the Universal parks. And yes, as John points out, I'm wearing my Mario shirt because there will be some year where you will be able to find Mario in the Universal parks as well. It won't be for a couple of years. Yeah, they've already announced they're going to do something Nintendo. Originally it was going to be a land, but now there are some rumors swirling that it might actually be an entire third park. But at the very least, it will be a land with a couple of attractions in it. So probably not till like 2020, 2021 range, but
I know someone had asked that a few weeks ago or maybe a month ago, but I don't keep up with Universal as much as I should just because I've never been to the park. So I don't want to give information when I've never been to the park. I don't know what I'm talking about. But now that I know that's been confirmed, that's very, very exciting.
Yeah, they're building it in, I believe, Japan first, which would make sense.
Yeah.
So there will be a Nintendo World. What actually will be in it, I think, depends on what they get the rights to. Obviously, Nintendo owns outright all the Mario characters and stuff like that. But there's been some discussion on like Pokemon and things, which is not totally owned by Nintendo. They have video game rights to it, but it is owned by somebody else. And so I think some of it, if they can get rights to things like Pokemon and stuff too, it'd probably be a much bigger section.
That would be
John
so
says
cool,
it's right. John says what he's hearing is it's going to be part of a third park at this point, which is the latest I've heard too. So
think about all the different demographics that would bring, though, between like just Mario and Pokemon alone. Just those two brands, Mario and those two,
Nintendo and Mario characters specifically are one of those things that really does. It's very broad. It kind of reminds me almost of like Star Wars in that they're like anybody my age who, the NES came out when I was, I don't know, 10 or 12 probably. And then my kids still play Mario games all the time. So it's a very wide range of people they're appealing to. So, a Mario Kart ride basically creates itself at this point.
I know.
So.
That's so easy too. How would you add like the mushrooms and the shells in? That's going to be the fun part.
Would actually be very fun if you actually got to like shoot shells at people and stuff.
Do some kind of like virtual reality in there. There's so many ways they could go with it with technology. Anyway, let's say hi to some people who are joining us, which you might have done already. Hello, Mary Ellen. Hello, Paula and Sarah. You said hi to John. Hello, Dee. Oh, my cousin and my friend. Oh my gosh, lots of people that I know have joined. Hello, Adam and Amy and Laura. Oh,
That's
hello,
what happens when
Katie.
you're the second one on these chats, because you have to be joined from your personal account, so then it alerts all your Facebook friends that you're
Oh,
on.
that's how that
So,
works. Oh, yeah, that makes
yep.
sense, doesn't it? Yeah, so we were talking about the second Harry Potter movie. I was watching this last night, and my husband's like, how many more of these movies do you have left to watch? And I said, oh, just 6 of them. And he's like, oh, my gosh, I'm going to be here forever. I wasn't asking him to watch these with me, but he was just sitting there, like, playing on his computer, so...
I forgot how long some of these movies are.
Yeah.
Because I'm watching my kids, actually. My daughter specifically has been wanting to watch them. So with the kids, we're on the 4th movie, Goblet of Fire. And it's taking us... We're watching it like while we eat dinner, basically, at night. And I mean, it's going to take us like a month to get through this because it's so long, and we only watch it for 30 or 40 minutes. So it ends up taking like a week and a half to get through one movie. It's crazy.
But it's going to be summer soon, so you'll have a little bit more free time. You know, maybe during like the afternoon resting time when they would be in school, but they're not, like after lunch.
Yeah, when I need to use my computer and I say, go do something else.
Yeah, go watch TV, go watch Harry Potter. But then you'll end up watching
So all right, before we get into the meat of it, I'm going to read through a plot summary. I apologize in advance. This is going to take a little bit because I started writing it out myself and there was a lot, so I kind of just took a bunch from the Wikipedia entry, which was also pretty big.
Yeah, it's really long.
These movies get real dense, and unfortunately a lot of the stuff in this book, this is the book where they really start to lay some of the track for the future stories. So there's a lot that I'll mention here that we may not touch on now, but might go back to later. Mm-hmm. So, okay, Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. Ooh, I brought my DVD and everything. Look.
Oh, we have
the old art that they have on those things.
Oh yeah,
that's
like
some really crazy. It's actual. It looks like it's actual pictures of them instead of like the first cover is like literally a drawing. It's really funny. But my widescreen edition. Remember we used to have to get widescreen editions of DVDs. That was fun.
Yeah, now you get like choices. All right, go.
Yeah, well now they can put them all on one disc. All right.
Room.
We begin where we often begin in Chamber of Secrets, with Harry being mistreated by his Muggle relatives, the Dursleys. They are preparing for an important business dinner and trying to get Harry out of sight. Harry goes to hide in his room. He meets Dobby the house elf, who will be very important, not just in this movie. Dobby implores Harry not to go back to Hogwarts because something bad will happen there, which we already know because it's a Harry Potter movie. Curiously, Dobby can only say so much because the enchantments of his kind, house elves, prevent him from acting too much against his owner's wishes. We will find out later that his owners are the Malfoys. That's not really a surprise, especially in the book. Dobby reveals that he has been stealing letters from Harry's friends to make him not want to go back. Ultimately, Dobby smashes some dessert onto a dinner guest. Harry gets in trouble, gets locked into his room. Ron Weasley and his twin brothers, Fred and George, rescue Harry in the middle of the night in a flying car, specifically a Ford Anglia, which the Anglia, if you don't know, is an English car that actually went out of production in 1967. It was replaced by the Ford Escort. Harry and us are introduced to the Burrow, which is the home of the Weasleys, and we get to meet the Weasley patriarch, Arthur, for the first time. The whole crew travels by flue powder to Diagon Alley. Flue powder is a substance that allows magical people to travel between fireplaces. Harry, in the movie, misstates the place. In the book, he inhales some ash, which is a little bit more elegant than him just saying it wrong. But that's quibbles for later in this discussion. He tells the fire where to go, ends up in Knockturn Alley, which we will also talk about quite a bit in a little bit later. After finding the Weasleys, they're introduced via book signing in Flourish and Blots to the new Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher, Gilderoy Lockhart, who is a blowhard for the most part, but he is very handsome and he loves being famous, and he is a 5-time winner of Witch Weekly's Most Charming Smile Award, which he will tell you constantly. There's a scuffle between the Weasleys and the Malfoys, which will also be important later. On the way back to school, the magical barrier to get to the Hogwarts Express won't let Harry and Ron through, which we find out later was also because of Dobby the house elf. Harry and Ron decide decide to fly the Ford Anglia to Hogwarts, which almost works. The car gives out at the end. They crash into the Whomping Willow, which is a tree that hits back, which we'll find out more about in the next movie. And they get caught. They were also seen in the flying car by a bunch of muggles, and Ron's wand breaks. None of that is great. While serving a detention for their misdeeds with Lockhart, Harry hears a strange voice, later finds the caretaker Argus Filch's cat, Mrs. Norris, petrified, along with a message written in blood announcing the Chamber of Secrets has been opened. Professor McGonagall explains that one of the Hogwarts founders, Salazar Slytherin, constructed a giant secret chamber, the Chamber of Secrets, and placed a monster that he or his heir can control inside of it to purge the school of impure wizards. Those are wizards not born from two wizards, which we'll talk about in a little bit. Let's see. Harry and Ron suspect this. I'm sorry. I know this is going forever, and I'm like halfway through. Harry and Ron suspect Malfoy is the heir. They use something called a polyjuice potion, which allows Ron and Harry to take the place of two of Malfoy's friends. They find out it wasn't actually him, but they do find out it has happened before, and that someone who was born of Muggle parents had died last time. Let me skip ahead a little bit here. Harry finds a diary by a former student named Tom Riddle, which shows him a flashback to the last time the chamber was opened when it was blamed on Hagrid. Slight spoiler, Hagrid didn't do it. Of course, Hagrid didn't do it. But the monster he had was a giant spider, an acromantula named Aragog. Hagrid, roundabout way, sends the boys to meet Aragog and his whole clan of giant spiders who don't like the boys being there. They chase them out. They get rescued by the Ford Anglia, which is now wild in the woods. Eventually, Ginny, Ron's little sister, is taken into the Chamber of Secrets. Harry and Ron go to save her. Professor Lockhart's there. We can mention that later. It's not really that important going forward, to be honest. Harry finds out that Tom Riddle was the original name of Lord Voldemort. Tom Riddle was what he went by until he left Hogwarts, basically. Mm-hmm. Harry has to defeat the Basilisk, which is the monster that's in there. It's the King of Serpents, a giant snake, with the help of Fawkes, Dumbledore's Phoenix, and the sword of Godric Gryffindor, which he pulls out of the sorting hat. And yeah, I know this is super confusing. I'm hoping you've at least seen the movie at this point, because this is not helping you at all if you didn't. Harry, of course, defeats Tom Riddle, later to be Voldemort, and stabs the diary, which is how he was getting his power. Much, much more on that much later in the sixth movie. We will find out what the diary really is and why it's important. But basically, he was possessing Ginny through it and being able to physically manifest from it. So Ginny was technically the one opening the Chamber of Secrets, but it was Tom Riddle that was possessing her. Harry accuses Lucius Malfoy, Draco's father, who brought Dobby with him to the school for some reason, of planting the diary. Of course, Lucius denies it, even though he totally did it. And then Harry frees Lucius into freeing Dobby, and happily ever after, and whatnot and whatnot. This is actually one of the few, I think, Harry Potter movies that have a post-credit scene, which is Gilderoy Lockhart, who has lost his memory by the end. He tried to do a memory charm with Ron's broken wand, and backfired and completely erased his memory. Mm-hmm. And it's just the window of Flourish and Blots, where he published a book that's just called Who Am I? And it's him in a straitjacket, which is a very odd post-credit scene. But so that's it. All right, yeah. I'm going to stop talking for a minute.
All right, take a drink. I wonder what's in that book, just out of curiosity. For those of you who are still with us, thank you for being patient. The summary is long, but it is necessary. And out of curiosity, thumbs up if you have been watching these videos with us. I just am really curious to see if you are following along with us, or if you have watched Chamber of Secrets in like the past month or something. Just hit the thumbs up button, because I just want to see. And also, I want to know if you did your homework. Last week's homework was to take the Sorting Hat quiz, or if you've taken it before, please write in the comments what house you're in. Brian, I think you told us last time what house are you in?
Yeah, mine always ends up Gryffindor, which, to be honest, I'm a little surprised at. I thought, because I've taken the official one at Pottermore, which is the website, at least backed by J.K. Rowling. And then I've taken, there's a ton of other quizzes you can find online. And I've taken a handful of them, and I think they've all come out Gryffindor, which I would have thought I would occasionally get a Ravenclaw and a bunch of Slytherins in there, to be honest. But I never seem to. So
I've taken the Pottermore one twice. And the first one was when Pottermore first launched, and it was a huge deal. I mean, it's still a big deal, but when it first launched. And then one was right after our Facebook Live. And I'm in Hufflepuff each time. And I'm always really disappointed because I always want to be in I always want to be in Gryffindor because I'm super brave and courageous, but that's not the truth at all. But somehow I think I should be. But no, I'm always in Hufflepuff. So
well, you and Alicia, I see Alicia here is a Hufflepuff. We've got Paula and Joanna are both Ravenclaws. Katie is a fellow Gryffindor, and John is a Muggle, which I guess technically we all are. So.
Do we have any Slytherins? I know one of my friends is a Slytherin, and she's always sorted into Slytherin every time. Oh, George is a Ravenclaw. Let's see.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure some of my friends that have done it have come out Slytherin before, but I can't remember who off the top of my head. I'm kind of surprised I haven't gotten Slytherin at least a few times, but. Because that seems right. I'm drinking out of my Slytherin cup mostly because Slytherin plays such a big part in the Chamber of Secrets. So
much like I'm a wannabe Gryffindor, are you a wannabe Slytherin a little bit, or are you just
not really? I'm.
You just really like the cup.
I'm probably a little bit no, but I do tend to, break certain rules and be a little bit sneaky at times, although. I said Harry and Ron and Hermione sure do too. So I think honestly, I'm probably kind of I would probably kind of be like Harry is in the last movie and this movie, which I plan on talking about quite a bit at the end. And that, that I would, given the choice, I would probably pick Gryffindor, even though I could probably go either way.
Yeah, I get that vibe. Do you guys get that vibe from Brian? Oh my gosh, my coffee hasn't kicked in, so I'm stuttering. Oh my gosh, I'm not even tired. I just got back from vacation. I had 5 days of resting time. All right, so let's talk.
Joanna says one of her babysitters is a Slytherin. So I don't know. There are definitely good Slytherins.
John said our dog is a Slytherin. I'd watch out for that one. All right, let's see. Okay, so. We have a list of talking points. Should we just start from the beginning, Brian?
Go for
it. So Privet Drive, they never focus too much on Privet Drive, which is where the Dursleys live, at the beginning of the movie. That's always just kind of oh, Harry's there. We know he's there. Let's move on. And Brian, neither of us really mind that. We're always okay, let's get to the good stuff. Let's get to the magic. Do you guys kind of feel that way too? I do.
Yeah, I in the books, I think I mentioned this last week or last time we did this. In the books, definitely the first 3 books, and I think the first 4, there are large chunks before Harry gets to Hogwarts. In the first book, you can kind of see all right, well, they have to introduce. You don't even know he's a wizard for the first few chapters. But after that, and we'll talk when we get to Prisoner of Azkaban in 2 weeks. I'll talk more about it because the 3rd book is the one where I just skip through the first couple chapters every time. I don't enjoy them at all. And but this one too, I actually reread the book again since last time. So within the last 2 weeks, I've both read the book and seen the movie, and I took notes from both so that I could try to remember things. But yeah, in the movie, he's only on Privet Drive, which is where the Dursleys live. It's 9 minutes of screen time before Ron and the twins break him out. So that is so much better than the book, which is a couple chapters of, I mean, they go through in pretty fair detail, like the whole dinner party and then the whole thing with Dobby. And there's more with Dobby in the book, which I like Dobby as a character, especially later. But we don't really know much about him in the books, and it tends to drag. The other thing that always bugs me, and I think she only does this for the first 4 books as well, but they kind of redescribe who Harry is, and like they try to be sly about it by saying, like, oh, Harry can't wait to go back to Hogwarts. Hogwarts, of course, is the school of witchcraft and wizardry, and since Harry is a wizard, he gets this.
Yeah.
And he found out he was a wizard because last year, because Voldemort killed his and they go through the whole thing for like 4 paragraphs. I'm like, yeah, I read the last book. I wouldn't be starting here. Come on.
Well, and that's kind of just the thing, is like when you're reading a series, who starts in the middle of the series. I had a couple things about Dobby is when I don't know if you guys felt this way too, but when I first read Dobby's part and him as a character, I just imagined this cute little house elf with this teeny tiny little voice, and I fell in love with Dobby. And then I saw him in the movie, and it's just like, ugh, he has this like weird voice. And he just looks really strange. And, that's fine that was their vision and of him. But, I mean, my daughter was watching Harry Potter with me yesterday, and she was terrified of Dobby. She wanted that scene to be over.
That's not the reaction they want?
No. Dobby was not cute to her. She's like, I don't want to watch this one. I want to watch the first Harry Potter. I don't like this one. I said, well, he'll be off the screen soon. So I don't know. How do you guys feel about Dobby? I expected him to be cuter and have this little tiny little house elf voice. And I did not like on-screen Dobby at all.
I don't really remember. See, like I read the books a little bit late. I think I had seen the first movie actually before I read the books, if I'm remembering right. And there's Dobby, by the way. Oh, there he is.
Okay, he looks a little. No, he still looks weird there. He was just cute. He was cuter in my brain, and I think they have a couple illustrations of him too, where he looks a little cuter in the books. And I read the books first, and then when you read the books first, you have the voices and the characters in your mind, so you're kind of set up for a little disappointment. But what Brian did mention to me earlier, we exchanged notes sometimes before these, or most of the time. He said that some of the characters were spot on from what he imagined in his head, which I completely agree. We talked about, Arthur Weasley, Lucius Malfoy. Who else did you say? Gilderoy Lockhart.
Lockhart and
Moaning Myrtle.
And Moaning Myrtle were the ones that stood out to me in this movie as just great casting.
Yeah. Arthur Weasley and Lucius Malfoy, those two were just like perfectly cast. And I think we talked about that with the first Harry Potter too, as far as like Hagrid was a perfect character, Ron was perfectly casted, Harry was perfectly casted. There were a lot of characters, like just the casting director did a phenomenal job. And they really did their homework. They had so much to work with too.
Dee says in the early drawings, Dobby was even uglier. So I guess he made it all right.
Is that right? Yeah, oh my gosh.
I don't remember. I think I had read this book before Chamber of Secrets film came out, but I don't remember being too upset with Dobby. I read this was, if my timeline is right, and I'm not going to look it up while I'm talking, but I believe I saw the first film, then read all the books, which there were only 4 books. I know the first 4 were out by the time I started reading.
Yep.
That's why I don't have hard copies of the first 4 books, because I just borrowed them off of people or from the library, and now I read them all on my Kindle. But from books 5 on, I have the hard copy because I ordered them. So, I did the thing with Amazon where I ordered them so that I would get them the day they came out. So,
yeah, that's what
but this Chamber of Secrets was actually the book that hooked me, oddly enough, even though it's fairly low, in the lower half at least of my book rankings now, because and I don't really know why. The first one I read and I was interested. I was like, okay. But the second one, I remember getting it from the library. This is when I lived in Maryland, and my wife was, I believe, still in school. I think she was still in college. It was right after I left. And so it was just me. And I spent in one weekend, I read both the Chamber of Secrets and the Prisoner of Azkaban in 3 days.
That's how it goes, though.
So,
you get hooked. Well,
and then I got, of course, to Goblet of Fire, and at the time the fifth one wasn't out yet, so then I had to wait like 6 months to read Order of the Phoenix, and that was rough. Going from 4 books to read to all of a sudden 0. I was like,
Chamber of Secrets was really, I mean, it was the second book, but it was the first scary book. It really was, and I think I was even reading the Wikipedia of this beforehand just to refresh my memory. And a lot of people said it was controversial because it was a scary children's book. And even watching the movie last night, I was telling my husband that I was genuinely scared watching the last scene, in the chamber, with the basilisk. It genuinely scared me. And I was, probably 12 or 13 when I saw it. So I wasn't super young, but it was scary. And they did a really good job translating that from the book to the film. And, because people are being petrified and they talk about, a girl dying, and it's very scary stuff, and it's deep stuff. And they're talking about people, there being a division about being, pure blood versus, having no wizarding blood. And, it's very deep stuff for a children's book, but it was very important topics to be brought up too. But I did want to go back to
and it kind of sets the tone for the rest of it, because from here on out, it just kind of keeps getting darker.
It does.
It doesn't actually go back to being happy again. The bad guys are pretty dark from here on out. It's mostly just Voldemort, but
But it's probably why I did like Prisoner of Azkaban, because we get a teeny tiny little break from that, which I'm not going to get into because you'll hear about that in a couple weeks. We get a little break from Voldemort. Little bit, not too much.
Sort of, yeah.
You'll know what I mean if you're joining us. But what was I going to say? Alicia agrees as far as Dobby. That was not what she was expecting. And George said that he had a Keebler elf-type elf in mind. And to be fair, Ugly Dobby makes Spew more interesting. But that plot line never developed, which was true. It really didn't. It developed far more in the books. But I think it would have been
even in the books,
it's really...
Even in the books, it's in like one book, and then they kind of mention it once or twice later, and that's about it. Like it seemed like something that J.K. Rowling wrote in, wanting to build out Hermione's character, and then was like, I don't have room for this anymore.
Yeah,
so.
Just like show her compassionate side, which we'll mention when that comes up in the books, what Spew is and what it's about, what it has to do with ourselves.
Rochelle points out they do have the illustrated versions of the first 3 books out right now, and I forgot last week. I should go grab it next time. But we do have actually the Sorcerer's Stone illustrated version. I bought it for my daughter a couple years ago, and they're amazing. The pictures in them are fantastic. But I don't have the Chamber of Secrets one, so. Because she never read the first one. She's literally just starting to get into it now, which makes sense. She's going on 10, so she's getting right into that wheelhouse.
She's at that age. Yeah, the Easter Bunny brought me the illustrated version of the first one. That was really nice. Yeah, the Easter Bunny was really nice. The Easter Bunny also brought my husband The Last Jedi, so we got really lucky.
Oh, I do have that. Yeah.
Still haven't watched it. We haven't had time. But let's talk about...
One other thing, speaking of things that they kind of cut out, one of the things I was almost a little disappointed never made any of the films, I don't think, are the gnomes from the Burrow. The Burrow is where the Weasleys live, which we get to see in this movie, which... but not a lot. I don't remember how... No, and I don't remember how often we get to see it going forward either. This, after like Goblet of Fire, I don't really remember a lot of the movies, to be honest. But in the books, they talk about the Burrow a lot. Like we know quite a bit about the Burrow. Harry spends quite a bit of time there. But one of the things they have is garden gnomes, except they're these little creatures with these like bumpy potato heads they're described as, that and they have to in Chamber of Secrets, the novel, they have to denome the garden, which basically you go out and you pull them out of their holes, shake them around in the air to make them dizzy, and then throw them as far as you can. And they are dizzy and have trouble finding their way back to the garden, which sounds pretty hilarious, and I would have liked to seen it in the movie, to be honest.
Well, but that's the hard part about movies, is like there's certain things that you just can't put in, because like when you watch it back, it doesn't make sense, it doesn't fit. But when you read it, you think, oh, that'd be so funny to watch on screen, and they just can't put it in. But the Burrow, they definitely didn't include a lot in this film, and you do see more of it in the next, several films, because a lot takes place there. These moves,
I know.
Yeah.
We'll get to it.
You get it.
But yeah, and this film in general, I have the same basic problems that I do with the first one, is from a storytelling perspective, is that and it's the same director and everything, so I mean it would make sense, in that they tended to do a highlights version of the book rather than peel away parts that don't help the overall story. So I think that's a little bit to the detriment of the film. I think it's tough to watch Chamber of Secrets without knowing at least some background of the story. I think there are parts that don't quite make sense. Prisoner of Azkaban is way, way better with that, which, is a different director and everything, which we'll talk about in a couple of weeks. But yeah, so.
Well,
all right,
Brian,
where should we go next?
Well, we'll compare, Borgin and Burke's and Knockturn Alley to the park. But I just wanted to say that Brian and I we're not like critics of the movie or the books. We are diehard Harry Potter fans. We are just here. At the end of the day, we love the movies and we love the books. We're just here to talk about what we liked and didn't like about each of those things.
With the Harry Potter movies, are kind of like Star Wars movies for me. I cannot stand the Star Wars prequel movies, and yet I love them and I own them and I will watch them every few years.
Yeah.
Because I don't care how bad they are still Star Wars movies. And that's kind of how I feel with the Harry Potter movies. I own every single one of them. Starting around movie 6, you'll start to see me convert to Blu-ray. But and even though I do have problems with them, it doesn't mean I'm not going to pull them out and watch them every 5 years or so. And the books I read the books every year, so that's
Don't watch these live chats and be like, they're so critical. Like, does anything make them happy? No, we love these. Whoops, hit the garbage can.
It all makes us happy. Yeah,
it does. And like the fact that I'm going to the Wizarding World of Harry Potter in less than 40 days, like. Oh my gosh, I cannot wait to bring you with me through these vlogs. It will be the highlight of my year. Let me assure you.
I hope you cry. That's all I want. I want you to cry.
No, I can't cry on camera. I already did that once when I showed the castle in my last few vlogs. I'm not going to do it again.
I'm going to wait till wait till the first time I'm in Star Wars land. It's going to be.
Oh, okay. We have to take
awesome.
A break to talk about the dates for that. Well, the dates for that being announced. That's very exciting. If you didn't hear, Disneyland.
Seasons, yeah.
Disneyland Galaxy's Edge opens next summer, and Walt Disney World late next fall.
Late fall. Which,
fall.
Them throwing that late fall in there makes me think there's no chance it's open before, like, mid-November.
Yeah,
and
late fall.
Early December seems more likely. Like, I mean, December 20th is still fall, so, like,
Can you imagine? I mean, it's already around Christmas time.
If they open that Christmas week, it will be a horrible disaster. It will be actually a lot like. This is actually a good thing to talk about, because it will be a lot like when Hogsmeade opened at Islands of Adventure. And I don't know if any of you remember seeing the photos from that or anything. There were 4 5-hour lines just to get into the land. Not counting, the time then you had to wait for the rides. There were waits for the shops. there were waits to get into like the Three Broomsticks to eat. Honestly, I think that's more what Star Wars Land will be like. Maybe not 4 or 5 hours to get in. And I would imagine Disney will do like the timed entries like Universal did with Diagon Alley then, where they had what are basically fast pass tickets that you would just go up and get, and then you would come back like, 2 hours later and be able to get in. So I think they would do something like that. But I think there will be a lot of comparisons between Star Wars Land and Hogsmeade with the way the crowds are. I think the crowds will be ridiculous for Star Wars Land when it opens. It's going to be rough.
Well, it'll be interesting to see how Disneyland handles it, and then how Disney World learns from that.
When I've heard theories that the reason, and I haven't heard this from any reliable source necessarily, but that potentially the reason Disneyland is opening earlier is because they think the Hollywood Studios one will be the more popular version, and they're trying to keep some of the crowds there down by allowing all like the hardcore fans to go to California first and avoid going to Florida. Then, if they really, really, really want to see it first, they would, they would go there then to try to keep the crowds under some sort of control in Florida. But I don't know if that's necessarily going to work either way. But
I have seen comments saying that some people would like us to do, a Star Wars rewatch.
Yes.
If that would be something you would like us to do as it gets closer to the opening of Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, please let us know. I already wrote back to that comment immediately saying 100% yes. So if that's something that you would
whether you want us to do it or
not. Oh my gosh, look how excited Brian is.
Yeah.
Look at him. He's like just as excited for that as Harry Potter.
I don't know where my X-Wing is. Hold on. It's in one of these drawers.
It's like just sitting there.
Yeah, it used to be on my desk, but the stand broke on it. So I don't want to just leave it sitting. It had a little display stand with a little X-Wing on top of it. And the display stand broke. So I think it's in the drawer that is blocked off by my microphone right now. So
okay,
I can't get it out. But yeah, I might just do that anyway.
Ooh, we got some yeses already. Alicia, Sarah, and Dee. All right, well, as it gets closer to the opening of Galaxy's Edge, we will definitely do that. We might have to stick with the original 6 though, because with all of these new movies coming out, that'd be a lot.
Well, we won't have to then. The ninth one won't be out by then. I don't.
Well, maybe we'd have to start.
It should be like the ninth one would be fall. It should be like fall of 2019. I would imagine. So
we'd have to do Rogue One though, because one of the attractions is about the First Order, so we'd have to. Right?
Well, First Order was a Force Awakens construct though. So.
Oh wait, yeah, you're right.
But yeah, I mean, whether we do the prequels or not could be, we can
let
see.
us know what you
We'll
guys
put
want to do.
Once we get close, we'll start putting up polls of which versions you want to do, and then if we end up doing the prequels, there'll have to be a discussion on whether to do them chronologically or in order of release. So.
This is a really hard life for us, Brian.
We'll see.
Watching Star Wars and Harry Potter. Gosh, we might have to do Lord of the Rings too. Someone else in the comments asked about that one day, and I was like, "Oh."
They did, but there's no theme park.
I know we can't justify that because there's no. I know. Okay, let's move on. All right, so you guys are here for talking theme parks, so let's do that.
Oh, that's right. We've been doing this 40 minutes, and we're at point 2. We're at point 2 out of my 12 talking points that I have.
We will wrap it up after talking about the theme parks because you guys have sat through this long enough. Okay, so let's compare Borgin and Burke's and Knockturn Alley itself to Universal Orlando in the Wizarding World of Harry Potter. First of all, Brian, which park is Knockturn Alley in?
It, just like in the movies, it is just off of Diagon Alley. So it is in Universal Studios, Florida. It might be my favorite part of the Wizarding World is Knockturn Alley, partially because people legitimately don't notice it's there. We've had comments on these. I've had people tell me that they've been to Diagon Alley and did not know it was there, which I think is both good and bad. I mean, it's bad in that obviously, if you only go every couple of years or something, like I'd be kind of mad if I just missed a section totally.
Yeah.
But it is one of those kind of cool things. So when you go into Diagon Alley, there are two ways to get into it. You can either go all the way straight towards Gringotts Bank, which is straight ahead when you enter Diagon Alley, take a left, and then at the end of that road, it will be a dead end, and you will see on your left an entrance to Knockturn Alley. And there is a sign there with an arrow pointing, but it's not super obvious. The other entrance that I've actually never gone in because I forget it's there and I don't necessarily notice. As soon as you walk in, there is the Leaky Cauldron restaurant on your left, which we will talk more about in the next time because we'll see it in Prisoner of Azkaban. We have already seen it in Sorcerer's Stone too, but you see it more in Prisoner of Azkaban. And right next to the Leaky Cauldron is the other entrance to Knockturn Alley. And I don't think there's a sign in that one. I think that one's meant more as the exit kind of. But it is perpetual darkness. It is completely covered. It looks very, very similar to the Knockturn Alley you see in the movie, with the exception that the walkways are bigger. In the movie, they're very tight, which they obviously can't do in a theme park. Even Universal, which is willing to go smaller than Disney would on walkways, they're obviously bigger. But they have posters. They have wanted posters in there. They have. Cool. There's no like real creepy people like trying to sell you stuff, which I'm honestly a little disappointed by. I could deal with like one person trying to sell fingernails or something, and which I believe in the book is what the crazy lady is trying to sell is fingernails. And but Borgin and Burke's is in there, and it's great. Borgin and Burke's might be one of the. I can't say it's the best shop because there are some crazy cool shops in both Wizarding Worlds, but it's one of the better ones. You can buy the diary that says Tom Marvolo Riddle on it. Ooh. You can buy I think it's literally like it's just blank pages. I think it's literally like a diary you could write in if you wanted to, but it's neat. The leather bound and it says, Tom, it has the Tom Riddle like name on the bottom. They have in display cases, they have lots of stuff from the movies, some of which that won't come up till later, but like the hand that they showed grabbing Harry in Chamber of Secrets, like they have one of those, and they have it's real good. Knockturn Alley is great, and I think this is the only time in the movie we actually get to see it, which is kind of good because there's no real reason. Right. They do. You do end up in Borgin and Burke's later.
Yeah,
but I don't know if you really see. Definitely in the sixth movie. And
aren't they on like the roof or something?
That one, I'm pretty sure that's the sixth movie.
Yeah.
And then. I think in a couple times in the sixth movie, I think we get to see Borgin and Burke's, but I don't think we get to see the rest of Diagon Alley. So, John points out there's a vanishing cabinet in there that makes a bird sound, which we'll talk more about in the sixth movie. Although this is a good time to mention it. The vanishing cabinet that plays a very pivotal role. It is mentioned again in the fifth book and movie, and plays a very pivotal role in the sixth book and movie. Is first mentioned in Chamber of Secrets in the book only, though. They don't do it in the film. In the book, there's a part where Harry goes to Filch, the caretaker's office. He finds out Filch is a squib. A squib is someone who is born of wizard parents but has no magic, which seems like it would really stink. But it kind of explains why Filch is super angry all the time.
Yeah, to be the person who like cleans the castle and have no magical skill to do so is like the worst job ever.
It seems super mean by Dumbledore.
I know.
All the dirt and stuff that a wizard could get rid of in 4 seconds, they make Filch be out there scrubbing. Like, come on, man.
And I love that he names his cat Mrs. Norris.
Yeah,
solid name for a cat.
So Harry gets in trouble from Filch. To get him out of trouble, nearly headless Nick, the Gryffindor ghost, convinces Peeves, the poltergeist, who is not in any of the movies. Any
of the movies.
And he convinces him to smash the vanishing cabinet right above Filch's office, which breaks the vanishing cabinet, which will later then require it to be fixed, and we'll get to that in a few movies. But and actually, as a thank you, another thing that's not in the movie, Harry and Ron and Hermione go to Nick's death day party, which is the anniversary of the day he died, which is there's a bunch of ghosts there, and that's where they actually meet Moaning Myrtle in the books, and it's a very, very weird chapter in the book that I totally understand them cutting out of the movie. That was one cut that I was like, yeah, of course you make that cut.
It was weird to get through too. I'm like, this is just very weird for children to read, especially the age you start at. You're like, all right, well, moving on, next chapter. But yeah.
So we're probably going to skip over talking Quidditch again. We skipped Quidditch last time because we were going so long, and then we'll probably skip it again. But we will eventually get to Quidditch at some point. One of these times that we don't spend an hour talking about everything else.
We have to talk about it for the World Cup.
For the World, but there's so much in Book 4. Well, I don't know, because the Triwizard Tournament takes up a lot of Book 4, and that's not really super useful, to be honest. It's great. I love it. But it doesn't really do much for the rest of the plot. So let's skip. Let's see. Obviously, it's very important. What the diary is, I should say, will be very important later. Which I won't say now. Okay, Forbidden Forest we should talk about because that will have theme park implications.
Okay.
So the Forbidden Forest, the Harry and Ron went into with Hagrid in the first movie. That's where they saw what turned out to be Quirrell possessed by Voldemort, drinking unicorn blood, which was pretty darn dark to start with. And this one, that's where they meet Aragog, the Acromantula, and his family, and they get chased out and they get helped by the car, the Ford Anglia. The Dueling Dragons attraction, which is now closed and demolished at Islands of Adventure. In the queue, I believe, you walk through part of the Forbidden Forest and could see the Ford Anglia was there that you could see, along with a bunch of props from the fourth movie, from the Triwizard Tournament, actually, that I just mentioned. They are completely redoing that. They have torn down all of the track, basically, for Dueling Dragons. It's going to be a new Forbidden Forest-themed ride. It is going to be part roller coaster, part dark ride, apparently. So I'm almost thinking something like Seven Dwarfs Mine Train at Magic Kingdom, where there are parts where you're going fast and then parts where you slow down and see things, and maybe an indoor. And they say there's going to be indoor sections, I think. But knowing Universal, I'm going to guess it's going to be a little bit more intense than like Seven Dwarfs Mine Train.
Yeah.
But I would be shocked if there weren't. I mean, we're going to see the car. I would be shocked if there wasn't a part where we were running away from Acromantulas. It just seems like something Universal would do.
Yeah.
They do already have them in the Forbidden Harry Potter and the Forbidden Journey attraction. Actually, some of the Acromantulas are in there. But yeah, so the Forbidden Forest, and I can't go into details exactly about what because we just don't know yet. But it is going to be Forbidden Forest themed. So, I mean, I'm sure there's going to be giant spiders.
Well, there's so many creatures that you could use for that attraction, and I really hope that it's not too short. Because, with a roller coaster, you anticipate, well, it's going to go fast, it's going to be shorter, but you really want to be able to see everything that they're going to incorporate because, it's so visual, and so is Harry Potter, especially the films and the land. So you want to be able to take it all in. So that will be
That's one of the problems
cool.
with Flight of the Hippogriff, the small, like the not quite kiddie roller coaster, but the smaller roller coaster in Hogsmeade at Islands of Adventure, which I will talk about more next week. But because that's when we meet the Hippogriff. But that the same thing. Like the coolest part of that, you kind of fly by, so like you have to kind of know to look for it on your way by almost. So yeah, I agree, and that will the new attraction is supposed to open next year, 2019. So and Universal doesn't usually go late on their attractions, so I would imagine by summer of 2019 we'll see that one. So all right, what else do you want to talk about before I go on my before I start my discussion about choice in the Harry Potter films. And
oh gosh, is this gonna get deep? Oh man,
maybe.
Let's go into let's see. Oh gosh, let's talk about the polyjuice potion, just because it's going to be used again in future films and future books.
Yep.
The polyjuice potion, I thought they changed it a little bit from the book, and just really in one way, and it was the voices. And I noticed that you had mentioned it before this, Brian, and they changed everything with the polyjuice potion. It's a potion that changes you into someone else. So all you need is a piece of their hair, and it changes you into that person. And in the book, also changes your voice to match that person. In the movie, it keeps Harry and Ron's voice and Hermione's voice the exact same. And so they have to adjust their voice to sound like Crabbe and Goyle, who was Malfoy's friends. And I think that they did that just so that you knew who was who in the film. But it's just an interesting thing that they did, to change it up. And it's something that they continue throughout the films when they do this again and again.
It seemed weird from a filmmaking perspective, because now they have to get the actors in to do voiceover and everything, like, rather than just have the actors that play Crabbe and Goyle do the parts, which seemed like it would just adding work that they didn't need to do. And the polyjuice potion only lasts for an hour if you don't keep taking it. So, so it's not like it was like a good portion of the movie. But actually in that scene, I'm glad you brought that up, because we do get to see the Slytherin common room, which I love seeing the other common rooms. And I don't think we get to see Ravenclaws briefly in, I believe, the last movie.
Yeah.
Or it happens in the book. I don't remember if it happens in the movie, but we never get to go into Hufflepuff's common room, and it's too bad. And I don't think they use the other common rooms in the queue for the Forbidden Journey in Hogsmeade. You go through a lot of Hogwarts Castle, and I don't think they do anything with the common rooms in there. So I would love to see something else where they kind of use that, even just in a queue like that. Like, I would like to see the others and be able to look around and just see what Hufflepuffs look like. I'm just curious.
Well, if you don't know,
we just don't know.
Slytherin's common room is under the lake, so it kind of gives off this green hue of the entire common room. So, I mean, it just gives it this really cool feeling. It doesn't so much in the movie, I guess, but it's supposed to. But yeah, that was.
But they have They have the big cushy leather furniture and the giant fireplace. It looks like the type of room where evil people hang out. So
definitely evil all the way. All right. So what were you saying about the choices?
Okay.
Settle in, people.
So I won't go too long, because I'll bring this up in the future too. But in Chamber of Secrets is the first time that J.K. Rowling really brings about the core principle of the Harry Potter novels, which is choice. They purposely make a point in the first movie of Harry trying on the Sorting Hat, and it tells him, you would be great in Slytherin. And he's thinking not Slytherin, not Slytherin, not Slytherin, and it's the hat says back to him, not Slytherin. You would do great things in Slytherin. Well, I guess it better be Gryffindor. And especially in the books, this really bothers Harry throughout the whole second book. That there's a whole big section where the school thinks that Harry is the heir of Slytherin, partially because he has a parcel tongue, which we forgot to mention. He can talk to snakes. And that was Salazar Slytherin's big thing. Now, the reason he can do that, and they do say it in this movie, so it's not a spoiler, is because Voldemort, when he cursed him and gave him the lightning bolt, that he imparted some of his abilities onto him. And Voldemort is an heir of Salazar Slytherin, so that's why Voldemort can speak to snakes, and that is also why Harry can. So there's a big section in especially the book where the school thinks Harry is the heir of Slytherin, and Harry himself is not sure. And Harry keeps thinking back to, okay, well, the hat almost put me in Slytherin. The first time we are introduced to Dumbledore's office, the Sorting Hat lives in there. And Harry puts it on again. In the movie, he just talks to it. In the book, he actually physically puts it on again, and asks the hat, is it true? Should I have been in Slytherin, basically? And the hat says, I stand by what I said. You would have done great things there. And it really bothers Harry. At the end, he asks Dumbledore about it. And Dumbledore says that you are in Gryffindor because you chose to be in Gryffindor. That it doesn't, who we are as people are simply the choices that we make. He points out, as does Tom Riddle, that Tom Riddle and Harry Potter are very, very similar. They both grew up without parents, Tom in an orphanage, which we'll find out more about later. Harry with the Dursleys, these awful muggles who mistreated him. They are both half-bloods, basically. Voldemort was born from one muggle and one wizard. Harry was born from two wizards, but his mother was born from muggles. They are both relatively handsome. They are both charming. They even look somewhat alike, is pointed out, especially in the books. They don't really look that much alike in the movies. And Dumbledore emphasizes very, very deeply that what separates them is the choices that they've made. Harry. This will come up later, although it's not a spoiler because I'm assuming nobody that hasn't seen the later movies is going to think that Harry goes to the dark side, but. Harry can basically sense Voldemort's moods and thoughts. He can speak to snakes. He can do all these things that any Voldemort supporter would love to be able to do, but he won't do them because he wants to do what's right, and he knows what to do. And the Chamber of Secrets is the first time that they really bring that up, and that's going to come back again and again and again. And if nothing else, the entire run of books and movies is about the choices that you make. And there are going to be other major characters who make really, really tough choices and that seem to go against their being, but it's one of the things that keeps me going back to the Harry Potter books, which is why I wanted to go on this now, 4 or 5 minute rant about it, but it's one of the things I love from it. The books are basically saying it doesn't necessarily matter how you grew up. It doesn't matter. It doesn't necessarily even matter what you've done before. And that is a very pivotal character that we won't really be able to talk about until the end. But, even if you've made mistakes in your past, if you from here on out, just choose to do the right thing, that's what really matters. Which I like. Not that I've done terrible things in my past, but it's why I said, I think, given that, if I was in the same boat as Harry and said, like, hey, Slytherin would work well for you, you're pretty ambitious, or you coid be in Gryffindor, I think it'd be like, I'd rather be in Gryffindor, honestly. And I think that's why, why I relate a lot to Harry. Plus, I like hanging around with really smart women, so that might be it too.
Going along with that is that ability to love throughout all of it. Harry grew up completely unloved through the very beginning by the Dursleys. But his parents and his mom, as we found out in the first book, his mother's love protected him at the beginning. Like with Professor Quirrell, and that love was, Harry was able to use his hands to keep Professor Quirrell away.
They bring it up again in this with when he's talking to Tom Riddle that comes out of the diary. They bring it up again that the ancient charm that saved Harry was his mother protecting him. Yeah.
So really pay attention to that theme of love. That goes hand in hand with the choices, and those are the biggest things that separate Harry from Lord Voldemort. So yeah, those are the two things to keep in mind. It's a theme throughout all of the books and all of the movies.
Yeah, and we will get back to that. Not necessarily in the next book, but in time we will we will definitely get back to it, because there's a lot of really great discussions, especially in the books between Dumbledore and Harry, where they talk about both of those things.
And say goodbye to this Dumbledore. There will be a new one next movie, right?
Yes. Yes, there will. Yeah, Richard Harris unfortunately passed away in between the filming of Chamber of Secrets and Prisoner of Azkaban. So Michael Gambon uh, replaces him. And, no spoiler, but I really like the way Michael Gambon plays Dumbledore in the third movie. After that, it's fine. But the third movie, I really like his portrayal of Dumbledore.
Yeah, so we'll talk about that in, I think, 2 weeks. I have the thing
2 weeks,
here.
roughly?
It is going to be Thursday, June 7th. So if you care to join us for that, you have until June 7th to watch Prisoner of Azkaban. Otherwise, if you just want to join us just to hear about it, next week we will still be doing, one of us will be doing a Facebook Live, or both of us. I feel like I had something. I think it's my daughter's last day of preschool, so it might just be Brian, but we will let you know closer to that date.
Yep. Yeah, I will definitely do something next week, hopefully on Thursday at noonish Eastern time, but we will post it on Facebook. So.
Okay, well, we will see you next week then. Have a great week. Bye, guys.
Thank you for watching.